Welcome back to Big Gold Belt Media. I am Damian G coming at you with another movie review. This time, another kung fu flick, as I've been known to like these things, called Fist of the Condor Part 1. Yes, this is a Part 1 to a movie I had high hopes for, only to be left a little disappointed. I'm not going to spoil a lot of things about this movie, but I will say in bullet point form, the action is very reminiscent of old school kung fu flicks, let's say of the 70s and the 80s, from which I was a young man watching these kung fu movies. If you want a definition of a popcorn movie, this movie starts off as that, and the action scenes allude to it being just basically a popcorn movie. The thing that has the issue here with this, while I was watching it, was that it jumped all over the place. We go from flashback to present day to flashback to present day, and you honestly don't know what's actually happening or what timeline they're in because all the actors look the same in the past as they do in the present. So you don't really know unless one of the characters is talking to their sifu or their master, where you're thinking, okay, this has to be the past. I don't want to use the word formulaic because I feel as if it's used a lot here. But firstly, this movie is completely in Spanish with subtitles because it's from a Chilean company or Chilean actor, Marko Zaror. Basically, the man who made John Wick 4 look pretty dang good in that fight scene in the street with Mr. Keanu Reeves. He stars the titular character. He crosses a lot of boxes. He's a Bruce Lee type, a Kung Fu The Legend Continues type, if you remember that show with the late David Carradine, and a lot of silent master style martial arts protagonists. A little formulaic. That's what I'm going to call it. And it's not that I want to go with that. That's what it was for me. This movie grabbed my attention for the first 30 minutes. And then after the 30-minute mark, I just lost interest. And I wanted to like this movie so bad. I really did, because coming off of Young Ip Man, enjoying that movie, saying, okay, we're back in the groove of watching decent martial arts movies. This one got bogged down in wanting to be more artistic with a message, more so than being like a Tony Jaa movie where it's action-packed from beginning to end. This one was a lot more philosophical, as I said before, similar to Kung Fu or Kung Fu The Legend Continues, where there was a method, there was a lesson to be learned here as we chronicle the protagonist as he's on this journey to secure basically this fighting move called the Fist of the Condor, which essentially can destroy you in a split second. It's that potent that it's buried in scrolls. It's a lot to do, okay? The main character, he's a great martial artist in the movie. I don't even think we got a name for him. I think he's just protagonist at this point. But during his fights, he has one weakness, and it's photophobia. He has a weird fear or resistance to light, and that weakness is played up a lot of times in this movie, almost as MacGuffin-y as using kryptonite every 5 seconds to beat Superman. All my DC friends would know exactly what that means. A lot of training montages, a lot of random fights that don't make sense to the overall story. I want to say the main character gave off an air of the silent assassin type. And as you see this movie progress, this actually becomes a tale of two brothers. And with the Cain and Abel story, there's always a good brother. There's always a bad brother. There's an old martial arts master teaching the brothers. At some point, one turns good, one turns evil. One takes the scroll. One's looking for the scroll to learn the fist, the Fist of the Condor, which again is a one-punch KO, borderline death blow. Some of the things I enjoyed about this movie was the protagonist's hair. Okay, from a guy who shaves his head daily, I had a real good kick out of this man's flowing hair looking like a Pantene hair flip from the villain, because the villain and the hero are played by the same actor. So they pulled a Jean-Claude Van Damme double take kind of thing here, where the villain has long flowing, I want to say Highlander hair, whereas the protagonist is a typical Shaolin monk shaved head. The fights don't seem to make a lot of sense. And if you are expecting realism, you ain't going to get that here. You're not going to get that here. There's really no realism to speak of in these fights. I believe there's about 4 fights in this movie. And as I said, 30 minutes in, a couple of things happen. There was one moment where there was just a level of disrespect where I kept thinking, no, there is no way in hell are you going to be that disrespectful to this person in this moment. And if you watch this film, you know exactly what the scene is. And let me tell you, it made me scream out loud, oh, hell no, as I wrote down here, oh, hell no, yo, what the hell just happened? That should tell you enough right there. And when you get to that spot, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you'll know the scene when you get to it. And if you've seen my reviews, you know I tend to have really authentic reactions, and my reaction was a literal WTF moment. So we're gonna leave at that part alone right there. But the overall story, as I said, it jumped around a lot. I really wasn't a fan of it. The fight choreography on some semblances was actually pretty good until you got to the actual fights. The fights themselves, I've never seen so many body rotations to just throw one kick. It was as if everybody was doing their best capoeira impersonation and making it all like, only the strong. And it just started getting redundant after a while with the same 3 moves being thrown around. And it had the trope of, you killed my master, prepare to die. As we grow up watching these martial arts movies of the 70s and 80s. Understandable. I like that stuff, but it did not flow well with this story. I'm sorry. This was a little janky. This was a little out of sorts. Just the plot didn't have any coherence whatsoever. As I said before, stories jumping around. There wasn't really a clear direction. It was making it really difficult for me to actually understand what was happening, as I alluded to earlier in this review. The dialogue, even though this movie is in Spanish, this dialogue was really basically written. Like there was no panache added to it. It felt forced. A lot of it was an homage, in my opinion, as I said, to old school kung fu movies, which for some people is great. For me, not so much. The delivery of the lines, there's times when someone like me has to do a commercial read, so I'm reading off a script per se, but I'm not using it verbatim. I feel as if there were cue cards in front of the actors while they were doing their actual voiceover lines, and it just didn't flow well, in my opinion. The action sequences, like I said, I think there's about 4 or 5. They're the backbone of the story. I'll give you that. But man, the choreography. Whoever the fight choreographer was, I got a bone to pick with this person, because you really thought you were going to make a Dragon Ball Z-esque or Street Fighter 2-esque fight scene with really bad effects. It just wasn't convincing at all. The overall acting was wooden, except for the one old master who happens to be a woman. Let's just throw that out there. I actually enjoyed her performance as the old master. And of course, there were random training montages, as tends to happen in movies like this. But overall, for me, the supporting cast also was poorly utilized. Nobody really had an identity. The main bad guy isn't really all that interesting. And I know this is a part 1, but this does not make me want to tune in for a part 2. So overall, Fist of the Condor, it's disappointing to me. I'm barely going to give this a C- if I'm going to throw a grade out there, because the first 30 minutes had me really invested. After that, there was nothing to be invested about. It was lackluster performances as the movie dragged on. It tried to be a little bit too philosophical for its own good. There are better options out there. Go back and watch Young Ip Man like I did, and that was actually pretty decent for being a popcorn movie. But aside from that, big shout out to Marko Zaror, who is appearing here on this very network, promoting this film as well as his career. But take it from me, Damien G, this was not one of my more favorite movies. I can't really say that this was great, in my opinion. I can't give this a high score. Again, I will give this a C-. Fist of the Condor, Part 1 falls flat for me. But let me know in the comments what you think. And remember, like, share, subscribe here at Big Gold Belt Media. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but you let me know. And if you want to get in touch with me on social media, do so at Damien G Show across the board. Best place to get a hold of me is on Twitter, twitter.com/Damien G Show. Again, Big Gold Belt Media with another review. Fist of the Condor, Part 1 gets a C-. I'll check you next time.
Big Gold Belt.